You found it. My video for how to refurbish or repair a hybrid battery yourself. The battery that I have in front of me is out of a second generation Toyota Prius. That's the years 2004 to 2009. This particular battery is out of a 2006 Toyota Prius with 246,000 miles. It was removed because a little red triangle lit up on the dashboard, and when the code was pulled it said that this battery pack needed servicing. Rather than taking it to a dealership or to a repair shop, I'm going to show you how to do it yourself. Now, I may have to buy some cells, being that the red triangle lit up. If your battery is just charging and discharging faster than normal, that means the capacity is just low and you don't have a red triangle yet, you can probably do the same procedure and add capacity back to your battery and get more performance out of it. You should definitely wear some sort of gloves. If you are a little bit accident prone, wear thicker ones because all this metal is very sharp. It will cut the crap out of you. And I mean quick, like a razor blade, okay? So that's one thing you want to be very particular about and very careful of. Okay, so the way that I start doing mine is I always flip the pack over. There's a bunch of screws in the bottom that you take out that hold all the cells to this frame. And I do this because I find that it's easier to assemble and disassemble the pack. So here's what we're going to do. Alright, we've got our pack rolled over and you can see this row of bolts. What it is that's what's holding each individual cell to the case. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unscrew all of those. This is made a lot easier with my little impact drill and one of these 8mm bits. Take each one out. Got me a little tub, keep all the screws in. That way I don't lose anything. Alright, now let's flip this bad boy back over. Once we got it flipped back over, we could take these bolts out right here. And they are on both sides. And there's also some bolts on the side here. These are all 10mm. This has to come off. It holds the two pieces of metal together right there. Alright. We've got the cover off and we can see the battery pack now. And you can see that it has 28 individual cells in it. And it also has these runners across the top for the vapors to go through. So what we want to do is we want to pull these off. Alright, we got them to the side. The next step we want to do is we want to take these covers right here off, these little black covers. I use a little pick for that. Stick it right up under here and pull them off. Alright, we set those off to the side. Alright, the very next step is to take all of these bolts right here out. These also are 8mm bolts. You definitely want to have your gloves on for this part because this is where you're going to possibly come in contact with the terminals in the battery. So I use the same thing, my impact driver, Now take those off one at a time. Now that we've got all these screws out, the next step is going to be to follow this wire and the wires that are underneath, and I'm going to show you that. You want to unplug those, okay? And you also got down here at the bottom, you got a 10mm right there. You want to take and you want to loosen that bad boy right there up. Don't take it all the way off, just loosen it up. Let me see if I can do it with one hand. Alright, there you go. See, I just got it loosened up. I'm going to slide the pack out from under that. The other one is on this opposite corner. We've got our bolt loosened up back here, and we have our nut off up here. We can pull these off. We set them off to the side. We're going to come back to those later. Alright, so now we should be free from the pack. We should be able to lift this out. There we go. Check it out. One thing I will show you is that you want to take all these little clips out of here so you can clean them. So what you do is you find the side that has the tab on it, you push that down, put your fingers in from the back side, and you can push those out. Just like that. Now these are a little bit different. They have those other color in there, you see. This is a separate piece of metal, and each one of these modules has a wire that goes back to the computer. So the way that you want to do these is you want to take your pick, pop that out of there, and then this little tab will come out from that hole. See? So you can do that all the way down. Like that. Once you've done that, then you can do like you did to the other side. You can put your finger in there, and you pop those copper pieces out the same way. They'll come out the exact same way. They're all the same, so don't worry about mixing them up or anything like that. Alright, you can see on the bottom of our battery pack here, this is our temperature sensors. There's one on the end here, one on this end here, and one in the middle. So we've disconnected those. We can flip it back over onto the top side. Alright, I'm going to leave this one right here connected because it's on this metal pole. I will remove all of these later after charging. I want to leave it together like this, compacted, while I'm charging it, because the charging and discharging process will cause heat in the cell, and that'll cause each cell to expand and contract, and I don't want it to go but so far. If it's compressed together, it won't allow the cell to expand too much. Alright, so to identify which battery is which and to keep track of it, I'm going to label each one with a number 1 through 28. I'm also going to label on a piece of paper 1 through 28. Then I'm going to read the initial voltage of each cell. Setting my meter to DC volts, and we'll read what I have on these. Okay, this is the charger that we're going to be using. This is a hobby charger. You want to make sure you get something similar to this. It allows you to control the charge, the discharge, the type of battery chemistry, everything. I It also has a place for you to plug in like your battery packs from your drones or whatever. But also what we have are banana clips with alligator clips on the end. So we'll put these banana plugs in and we'll put our alligator clips onto the proper batteries, and we'll charge 4 of them at a time with this charger. So we can do 4 cells out of these 28 at any given time. This unit right here has an internal power supply, and so I can plug it directly into the wall and use the power switch. They're also available, or this one right here can be powered with an external power supply, in which case I would plug in right there. We have the banana plugs. We put the black on negative, the red on positive, and we'll do this for each one of the channels. And we also want to do the same thing for our battery packs. Red on positive, black on negative. Now, here's one thing I started talking about earlier, and it is that when you're charging these packs and discharging these packs, they will create some heat. And so what you want to do to eliminate the heat as much as possible and to spread it out is you want to try to jump over battery packs. In other words, don't charge them right next to each other. So if you look, the way I'm doing this is I've got this one on charge and I skipped 1, 2, and I went to the third positive. Okay? And I'm going to do that just so that when this pack gets hot and expands and contracts, it doesn't affect any of the other ones. And it makes it easier for me to tell, where I'm at. I don't have everything crowded together in one big spot. Due to my spreading out the wires, I'm on number 1, number 7, number 13, and number 19. Let's check out the charger. Turn her on. And we're going to look at the different modes we have. The first thing that we want to do is go to our user settings. These have already been set up, but I'm going to show you what the settings are and the ones to pay attention to. The first one is this wait time between charge and discharge. 5 minutes. That's a good amount of time to wait for your battery pack to cool back down before you go to the next step. Alright, the next thing that I set up was this temperature cutoff, and I set it to 176 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I set up the safety timer to 720 minutes, and I did this so that it does not time out during my charge and discharge cycles. Very important setting is capacity cutoff, 7,500 milliamps. You shouldn't charge your battery higher than that. This is your high number capacity, meaning that the highest point that your pack's going to make. The ones that we go off to determine if your pack is good or not are the low numbers, but you want to set your high number to 7,500. Alright, so the next thing that we want to do is find our type of battery, and ours is a nickel metal hydride, NIMH, which is right there. And we want to go to the setting that says discharge and charge, the cycles. So we want to make sure that we're on discharge and then charge, and we want to charge at 3 amps. We want to discharge at 1 amp, and we want to do this for anywhere from 3 to 5 times. I set mine up for 3. Okay, so now this charger is completely set up and ready to go. All we have to do to start it is to hold this start button down for a second, and it's going to start rolling. And so we'll do the same thing to the next ones. And so there we go. We're on our way. We're going to see what we get. Our first cell has come to an end. So that means that it's run its cycle. Let's see what it says. Oh man, that's terrible. On number 1, it only had 3 milliamps and 4437 for the high. That's really not good. In the second run, it got better. And the next one, 1303. I can tell you from doing these before, when you get bad numbers like this cell's not going to be any good. And so I already know that. If you look at how crazy these numbers are fluctuating and how low that is, it's not going to be any good.
If I would have done it the first time and it would have had this the first time, and then maybe the second time would have had 4,000 something, and this number, the high number, would have gone up as well, then that would have been a good sell. So this sell I know is going to be, I'm not keeping that. So I'm going to put my X next to number 7. Next one just ended. It's been about 16 hours. And this one instead says capacity instead of end. Alright, 3,041 and then 7070. The second run, 4734 and 7,500. Reached that 7,500 there on its second run. I don't think that there's going to be another one because it met its capacity. Sure enough, okay? So the low number is what we really want to pay attention to. Although that high number made it stop charging again, this low number, 4734, is as much as the pack will be able to have. And I don't want any pack that's less than 5,000 milliamps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to the cycle and I'm going to start it again on the same battery. Another one that's done. It's cell number 1. And so we've got a number of 114 on the low and 6603 on the high for the first round of charging. The second round we have 4744 and then 7059, so it improved considerably. And I guess this next reading, if it keeps going up on the low side, we'll keep going. If not, we will know if it's like that last bet. Oh, 5032 and 6882. So the high went down a little bit, but the low is coming up.
Well, a couple of weeks have passed. It's taken me exactly 16 days to do all 28 of these cells. I've got 4 of them that I'm going to replace in this pack. One of those is the one that read real low on the initial voltage, which was number 3, and it read 6.335 volts. That's one of the ones that's getting replaced. The other ones that are getting replaced are not due to the initial voltage reading, but they're due to the milliamps. I don't want any cells that are less than 5,000 milliamps. And the reason for that is this whole unit, when it's all together as a pack, is only as strong as the weakest cell, which would be 5,000 milliamps. Alright, there's my cells. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line them up. As opposed to being positive, negative, positive, negative, I'm going to line them up with all the positives on one side and all the negatives on the other. And when you're putting these together, you'll be able to feel if they have a certain spot, they'll kind of fit in. If they're not in that spot, they won't quite fit right. But they'll get to a certain point where these little tabs will line up and they'll fit right in there and they'll feel good. I've got my cells lined up. The cells that are bad at this point, you would have wanted to replace with your new ones. This step is going to make the voltages equalize to each other so that your pack will be better balanced. Now, the intention is to connect all of the positives together and all of the negatives together. You can do that with some baling wire and wrapping it around each one of these connections. You can do that with separate pieces of copper wire. You can do that with jumper leads if you have enough of them. The way that I like to do it is I like to use a piece of TIG wire, and it's just because I have it laying around and I found that it's very easy to use. And what I do is I start all the nuts and I lay it in the gap, and I'll take my drill and I will tighten these down until this is touching every single one of these. This process is going to take anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. One thing to mention before I tighten them up is that you want to set your impact to a lower number. Something that's not going to distort the bolts. So I'm going to set this one probably to 3 to start and see how that does. Yeah, 3 is going to be good for me. We have tied all the positive terminals together. We've tied all the negative terminals together. Now we're going to wait for 48 hours and we'll take them back apart. They should be normalized. Man, we've had a good day at work. Time to jump back onto this battery project and see if we can finish her up. I'm going to start by removing all of these bus bars. We want to arrange our cells so that the ones that have the highest milliamp rating are in the center of the pack, and the ones that have the lowest milliamp rating are on one of the either ends. And the reason for that is when this pack is in the car, the center of it retains and builds more heat. It's harder on those cells. So basically, if I had some that ranged from 5,000 to 6,000, I'd put the 6,000s in the middle and the 5,000s on the end. So I'm going to take my sheet, I'm going to go down and I'm going to arrange them in the proper order. While I'm doing that, I'm making sure that I turn them back into the series formation of negative, positive, negative, positive. Alright? So let's go ahead and get that done now. I have my cells laid out so that the highest current ones are in the center, the highest milliamps, and the lowest are on the outside because of the heat dissipation. Now the next step that I want to do is start assembling this back into a pack again. So I start with my end that was closest to the computer, laid out in the same method that it was before, and the positive was on the bottom on this side, and meant that the negative was on the bottom on this very far side. So I've already got them arranged the way I need them to go into this case. So I'll go ahead and start putting them in. Now, these little tabs are going to line up a specific way, and it's going to make the battery fit together correctly. So what you want to do is when you put it together, you want to make sure that you feel those tabs lock in, okay? When they lock in, you know that you're good to go. So we'll get them all started, and then we'll get them locked in. Make sure I do is make sure that all these tabs are lined in there nice. So I like to tip it up on its end, kind of move it around, make sure everything seems like it's lined up good. Not bad. Alright, so if you remember, we had one on the end. So this should clip right in somewhere here. There we go. Like that. We had one in the middle, so let's go like this. So one of these two. Let's call it this one. Okay. Now we have one down here. Oh. So now our temperature sensors are in. Brought our case back over. We can lay our pack back down into that. Alright, fit right back in. We'll tighten up that 10mm nut on this side and the 10mm nut in the other corner next.
Once you've got this unit secured back in place, it's just a matter of putting your contacts back in. So you put them in the exact opposite way that you took them out. You push it under the tab that is a fixed tab, and then push it right past the little tab that you push down to pull them out. Then you'll take your clip and put the top of it right back in that hole, and you'll push this down into the clasp. And you can use a screwdriver if you need to, but I use my fingernail and push it right back in. So we'll put all the rest of these back in. Alright, when you're putting these back together, you want to make sure that you put the long pieces on first, and you get these pieces behind the foam. See, that way it'll seal. And that's on both sides, got this piece of foam. And I find it's real easy to start these with a number 8 nut driver, and then take my drill and go back behind it and tighten it up. Got the wires in there. These just pop right back into place. Sensors need to be connected back up to the computer and this little unit here. Pretty self-explanatory. Once those are put back together, we're going to put our little black piece of plastic back in here. It's this guy here. It clips on there. This goes back through. Next step is to put our vent tube back on. Now, the interesting thing about the way these are designed is, if you do have some of this backwards, at some point it's going to show up, okay? So, for instance, if these batteries aren't aligned properly to this frame, this vent tube won't fit on here. It won't fit on this battery pack. See, but it fits because it's got just enough clearance that it was put together right. Also, if you've got some of these battery packs backwards, the vent tubes are not going to line up with the holes, and you'll know that. So they make it almost foolproof for somebody trying to do a reassembly. So that's one of the main reasons you shouldn't be scared about trying to do this project yourself. We're so close to being done with this bad boy. So the next step we're going to do is put our cover back on. Rock and roll this thing over. And we'll see that our screw holes are close to being lined up. I like to do these in the same fashion as I do the sides of the battery. I start them with this hand driver, and then I'm going to follow up with my drill to go ahead and lock them in, make them nice and tight. Put my little piece of rubber back on here. And there she is. One Prius hybrid battery, refurbished, ready to go back in the car with no less than 5,000 milliamp capacity. You've watched me disassemble, refurbish, and reassemble this battery pack. It's now ready to go back in the car. You can do it yourself too.